Welcome back to Whence, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. I'm your host, Brother Robert Johnson. This is episode 143. As far as the news goes, well, just about the only thing that I can think of to announce is that I'll be in Oliphant, Pennsylvania next month presenting Freemasonry and its colonial tavern beginnings on the 11th of June at Kingsbury Lodge. So if you're going to be in the area, please consider coming out. I know it's going to be a good time. Before we get into the papers, I would like to just remind everybody to check out the Midnight Freemasons on the web at midnightfreemason.blogspot.com and in print in the largest independent Masonic magazine in the United States of America, The Working Tools. And you could find them at www.twtmag.com. And I want to just jump straight into the pieces this week. I've got a couple really cool ones. The first piece I have for you this week is called The Symbolism of Stone by Brother Leon Zeldis, editor of the Israel Freemason. This short talk bulletin was taken from a longer article printed in volume 106 for the year 1993 of Ars Quartor Coronatorum, Transactions. A fundamental question rarely asked is the reason why our ancient brethren, who developed the complicated symbolic structures of moral and philosophical teaching we now know as speculative Freemasonry, would choose to base their system on such modest materials as the builder's trade, his tools, and legends. Such activities as seafaring, metalworking, agriculture, and husbandry, among others, could have been used just as well in developing a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Indeed, they have been used for this purpose at one time or another by various individual thinkers and organizations. However, the stonemason's trade and his material, stone, have such profound, far-reaching, and universal significance and connotations that the choice was not only justified but inevitable. Stone has been since prehistoric times the principal material used to build and adorn important structures where solidity and permanence are the paramount considerations. Stone became paradigmatic of stability, hardness, and endurance in all languages, bearing a wealth of symbolic meaning, with many deep-rooted psychological and historical associations and suggestions. Stone was in all probability the first material used by primitive man. The first coarse tools were simply rough stones used to hammer, cut, and grind. The first giant step taken by mankind towards civilization was the change from using natural stones to chipped or flaked implements and arrowheads, with improved cutting edges or allowing the use of a handle. By this apparently simple act of modifying a stone before using it as a tool, man became homo faber and started to fashion his environment, instead of being the passive receiver of what nature had to offer. Stones were not only used as tools, but became the objects of veneration of primitive men, whose survival depended on them. Rubbing and polishing stones is a well-known, exceedingly ancient activity of man. In Europe, holy stones wrapped in bark and hidden in caves have been found in many places. As containers of divine powers, they were probably kept there by men of the Stone Age. Stone in the Jewish tradition. Sacred stones or pillars are mentioned by Herodotus, the 5th century in BC, and appear in several places in the Old Testament. Jacob, after striking a pact with Laban, erected a stone monument which he called Galed, or testimonial pillar. Moses erected 12 stone pillars near the altar of sacrifices. After crossing the Jordan River, Joshua ordered the taking of 12 stones from the riverbed, one for each tribe, setting them up in their camps and carrying them later on their shoulders as a memorial of crossing on dry ground, Joshua 4. Joshua also set up 12 other stones in the middle of the river, in the place where the priests carrying the Ark of the Testimony had stood. Finally, Joshua erects a Gilgal, the 12 stones he had brought from the Jordan, so that the future generations would know that the Lord had done to Jordan just what he had done to the Red Sea. Later, Joshua built an altar on Mount Ebal, made of uncut stones on which no iron tool had been used. Joshua 8:30 through 31. Finally, before dying, wrote down the law on a large stone he set up under the oak tree, as a witness against the people of Israel, should they betray their covenant. Joshua 24:26 through 27. Samuel put up a stone which he called Ebenezer, stone of help, after the Philistines were rooted in Mizpah. 1 Samuel 7:12. Adoniah offered a sacrifice near the rock of Zoelet, joyful, near the fountain of Rogel, 1 Kings 1:9. Jacob's ladder, which figures on the first-degree tracing board, is directly related to the stone pillar erected by Jacob after his dream. He had used the stone as a pillow and poured a libation of oil to consecrate the memorial. Genesis 28:18. Jacob names Bethai, the house of God, as the place where he had his dream. The identity of the stone, human being, and anthropomorphic deity throws light on the saying, "Look to the rock from which you were cut, and a quarry, and to the quarry whence were you hewn. Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah who gave you birth." Isaiah 51, 1-2. There is a Jewish custom of placing a small stone over the grave one has visited. This may be connected to the Greek travelers adding a stone to the Hermes monuments in order to secure a safe journey. Stone in the Christian tradition. The best example of the importance of stone in the Christian teachings is, of course, the case of Simon the fisherman, called Peter, Petrus, the stone, by Jesus. "I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Matthew 16:18. The Pope, as linear successor to Peter, is called Holy Father. The connection between Peter, Father, and Petrus, stone, is obvious. In the Hebrew language as well, the same letters forming the word Father appear in the word for stone. In another instance, Christ himself is compared to a rock. 1 Corinthians 10:4. A passage in the book of Revelation 2:17 mentions a white stone with a secret name written on it, which only the recipient will understand. Stone in Islamic tradition. The central point of worship for Muslims is at the Kaaba, at Mecca. Every pious Muslim must make a pilgrimage to Mecca, called the Hajj, at least once in his lifetime, making several circumambulations around the sanctuary of the Kaaba. The black stone, which according to witnesses reports appear to be a meteorite. The pilgrims also throw stones at pillars representing the devil in the vicinity of Mina. In Jerusalem, there is a stone in the Dome of the Rock, built on the spot where the sanctum sanctorum of the temple is supposed to have been located, from which Muhammad is said to have jumped to heaven, mounted on Al-Barak. Stone in Masonic literature. In Masonic rituals and legends, stone plays a leading role, beginning with the entered apprentice, who is enjoined to polish the rough stone with a hammer and chisel, and culminating with the variously shaped stones appearing in the Master Mason's degree. There is hardly a ceremony in symbolic Freemasonry which is not connected in some way with these stones. After completion of the initiation ceremony, the new brother is placed in a particular position within the lodge and is usually told that he represents the cornerstone of which Freemasonry's spiritual temple must be built. In the Edinburgh Register House, MS 1696, the jewels of the lodge included the Perpend Esler and the Mrod Oval. The first is a perpendicular ashlar, that is, a stone placed crosswise through a wall, while the second is believed to be a corruption of the broached dornel, that is, a chiseled stone. Similar information appears in the Chetwood, Crawley, MS, circa 1700, Perpendester, and Broken Mail. The mason's work is thus described in the Dumtries, No. 4, MS, circa 1710, to work in all manner of worthy work in stone, temple, churches, cloisters, cities, castles, pyramids, towers, and all other worthy buildings of stone. In the same manuscript, we find a reference to the two pillars of stone, one that would not sink and the other that would not burn, which held the noble art or science. The mason himself, as we have noted, is likened to a stone. In Robert Samber's dedicatory preface to the Long Rivers, London, 1722, we find this pithy definition, quote, "Ye are living stones, built up a spiritual house, who believe and rely on the chief lapis angularis, which the refractory and disobedient builders disallowed." End quote. In conclusion, the deep and various meanings of stone as a physical object and as allegory make it easy to understand why the art of the builder should have been selected as the appropriate vehicle to convey the philosophical and mystical teachings of speculative Freemasonry in its different manifestations. All right, the next piece I have is called "We Are the Builders." We are all agreed that Freemasonry is a splendid fraternity, that it is steeped in tradition, that it numbers many great men of the past and present as its members, that it has a beautiful ritual, and that it is indeed a great honor to be a Freemason. However, in the final analysis, the future of Freemasonry depends not only on these things, but on the influence it exerts in the life of each one of us. If society is to be successful and everlasting, it must live and breathe the principles on which it is founded. It must be workable, and this means that the individual members must live in the spirit of real brotherhood. We must be a doer of the word, not just a hearer only. To assume obligations of friendship, morality, and brotherly love, to reaffirm love for the dependence on the Eternal Father, are but empty words, lost forever in the restless air if they are not practiced in our daily life. In this sense, we, as present-day Masons, could very well classify ourselves as operative Masons. Our lodge is not just a room. It is not merely a place in which to enjoy fraternal fellowship. It is not an organization which replaces the church. It is not the means of promoting one's self in business. What our lodge really is a group of men, a group of brothers, who have dedicated themselves to a common task, and that is to build. A Freemason is a builder of character, a builder of a better community, a builder of a better nation, a better world in which to live, a builder of an eternal temple for the indwelling of God. Such should be the real meaning of Freemasonry to each of us. If not, we should rededicate our lives right now to those principles of Freemasonry to which we have obligated ourselves to accept, to learn, to keep and exemplify. We are brought to light in order that we may let our light so shine before our fellow men that they may see our good works and join us in glorifying the great architect of the universe. All right, that last piece actually didn't have an attributed author, and it was a shorter piece, but I thought it was very nice. Next is a piece that I actually prepared a little while back, and I thought I would share it with you now. And it conveys some of the feelings that I had felt initially about the craft and some of my frustrations within the organization for a short period of time. And recently, through some of my interactions with my brothers throughout the fraternity, but more especially on the Masonic Roundtable, which, again, if you guys haven't checked out, is a live show that we do on YouTube. We had a little conversation going about, the episode was actually called Whence Came You, and talked a little bit about why we came into the fraternity. And I heard Jason Richards' story, and it was the first time I had ever met a younger Mason who didn't necessarily join a lodge for the same reasons that many of us did, which for him, he did not join for esotericism. So, that being said, I'd like to just go ahead and read the short piece that I prepared a little while back. I Quit by Robert Johnson. Demitting. Leaving the lodge, all out quitting. It wasn't long ago that I had thought about doing this. I was producing my podcast, Whence Came You, managing the Midnight Freemason articles, appearing on the new show Masonic Roundtable, not to mention my personal lodge duties as being senior warden. You might say, wow, that's a lot of work, and he just took on too much. But that wasn't the case. You see, when I joined the fraternity, I was looking for something to validate the way I felt on a day-to-day basis. I was looking for an organization that believed in the teachings of charity, brotherhood, and a society who had genuine concerns for each other's well-being. But I was also looking for a means of understanding those esoteric ideas and teachings, which would then help me understand the exoteric fundamentals or the secrets of man contained within the body of man, or at least our minds. When I joined, I was pleased to see that this first aspect of what I wanted was met with full expectation. I was a brother, and it was like at the flip of a switch, I had made 30 new best friends. But after some time, much like many who come this way, I found some areas which were, in my humble opinion, lacking. As anything, if you need to get something done, you should get involved, and that's just what I did. I worked to change this. I began getting involved. I became the education officer. I started a podcast, which I now produce, and you are all listening to it right now. I work with some of the most talented writers in the realm of Masonic subjects. I began to think about all these things that I was doing, and that's when it hit me. Maybe I was looking for something that wasn't there. Maybe I was trying to turn something into something it was not, or never was. Was I being like an overbearing father, pushing his kids into sports or academia simply because that's what I wanted? All this esotericism, all this symbolism, maybe it's all garbage. Maybe this fraternity is just that, a fraternity of friends and brothers who are there for each other, and having been through the same initiation, they are or feel closer to one another. I mean, that's enough, isn't it? If this was the case, then I said to myself, I'm done. After all, why would I want to make it into something that it isn't, just to please my own personal needs? So if this was the case, I needed to move on. I would see no reason to continue in any research. I would demit and be done with it and return to a life of television and relaxation. I'd have more time to just simply be. You see, why would I want to work so hard to change something into what it isn't or was never meant to be? To attempt this is an insult to the organization and is a waste of time. I wrote a piece in the Working Tools magazine a while back which was called Minding the Store, which expressed my feelings of our fraternity getting back to work. It'll be posted on the Midnight Freemason soon. And shortly after this, Brother Aaron Gardner wrote a piece expressing his issues and solutions to the fraternity, which was published in the Livingstones magazine. And yet still, Brother Rob Walk Jr., the latest to join the Midnight Freemasons, had just wrote a piece called What Now?, which again had this same theme. Shouldn't Masonry be more? Well, let's hold on. Another good friend of mine, Brother Jason Richards of the Masonic Roundtable, started a blog recently called The 2-Foot Ruler, Masonry in Plain Language. And he had a post recently which really made me think. It is an excellent piece and can be read right on his blog page. It added fuel to my demit fire. He stated that he joined for friendships. And I thought about that. My friend and brother Jason joined the fraternity not for its esoteric values, but for friendships, the kind that last forever and through anything. And you know what? I guess I did too. I had many new best friends. So again, why was I trying to force a change on the fraternity as a whole? There are so many esoteric thoughts exemplified in so many of the degrees, both York and Scottish Rite, not to mention friends and brothers who are also involved, other mystery schools like the OTO, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucian societies, both inside and outside the York Rites, who constantly post articles and interesting documents, which we converse upon for days. And of course, all the many degrees conferred in the interesting yet clandestine organizations like the Memphis Mizraimites. Let's face it, those rites are fascinating. There's just too much. So much that it became daunting to even think about them. Maybe traditional observance lodges was the answer, but again, I wasn't about to join another lodge. To me, the traditional observance lodge is something that regular lodges will pull from in order to make their own lodges a bit more professional. It has been said that Freemasonry is so extensive and so huge that the knowledge contained within can never be known in totality to any one person, even over a lifetime. That is, you will never know all of it or understand it. It's bigger than us. So, while talking with my wife about this and expressing my thoughts of demitting, she listened to me and said to me, "Isn't that what makes your fraternity great? Everyone gets something different out of it." And I agreed. But I also expressed my feelings that it was so very frustrating, as one of my close friends put it, quote, "to know that there is no finish line for men like us." I vehemently touted that our work will never be done, and that it feels completely disheartening at times to know this. And she said to me, "And that's what makes you guys great." And I saw her point. We continue our work knowing that it will never be done. So here I am, still writing, still doing these things we call Freemasonry, pushing out fundamentals of charity and benevolence to all mankind, taking my place among the other 7 million brothers worldwide who set examples of how to act and conduct ourselves for the rest of humanity to witness and emulate, searching for the individual truths to satisfy our souls. I have accepted that I will never know all the secrets that reality has to offer, and I have accepted that Freemasonry is many things to a great many people. To me, however, it will remain the search for my own individual and personal truths, while sharing a bond that will last for all time. I guess you can't get rid of me that easily. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that last piece. Again, I wrote that just a little while back. And next, we're going to jump right into this week's famous Freemason, Brother John Asen. Born March 5th, 1890, passed away August 1st, 1938, was an American silent film actor who was one of the tallest actors in history. Born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Asen's mother, Christy, from Rolag in Numedal, was extremely tall Norwegian woman of around 7 feet 3 inches tall. It is not certain who his father was, but according to Asen's sister Evelyn, who died in 1988, his father was Alfred Asen. When Asen was 10 years old, he and his mother moved from Ridgway, Iowa, where his uncle Sam lived with his wife Cornelia, to Cheyenne, North Dakota, with his 2 younger siblings. Asen was a Freemason. He was raised to the degree of Master Mason at Highland Park Lodge, number 382 in Los Angeles on July 14th. 1924. When in Cheyenne, Asen's mother operated a restaurant. He attended school and helped out his family business. In 1902, Asen's mother passed away. He was taken into many homes and families. One family he was staying with started to operate a hotel in Leeds, North Dakota, and he moved with them to that location. Asen's growth started slowly. When he was confirmed in the Lutheran faith in Grandfield Lutheran Church near Cheyenne, North Dakota, he was the shortest in his class. According to some sources, Asen was around 8 feet 11 inches tall, which, if true, would make him taller than even Robert Wadlow. The Top 10 Everything 2010 edition states that his height was 8 feet 9.7 inches. According to the 1978 edition of Guinness Book of World Records, he was only 7 feet tall. Just before his death at age 46, he was medically measured at 7 feet 0.9 inches. However, he had lost some height due to age and could not stand completely straight anymore. In June of 2008, Loma Linda University confirmed that he was actually 7 feet 2.4 inches tall, because a skeleton that they had in their collection was actually that of John Aison's. In 1922, Aison was offered an acting job in a film called Why Worry, produced by Hal Roach and released in 1923 alongside the comedian Harold Lloyd, also a brother. Later, he acted in several other films like Bengal Tiger, Charlie Chan and the Circus, Growing Pains, Should Married Men Go Home, Legionnaires in Paris, Two Flaming Youths, The Sting of Stings, and Long Live the King. Aison died from pneumonia on August 1st, 1938, at Mendocino State Hospital in Mendocino, California. His body was later shipped to a doctor in Missouri for study and dissection. The skeleton was kept by the doctor and eventually shipped to Loma Linda, California, where it was discovered and reevaluated for the height. Aison's cremated soft parts were given a Masonic funeral at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Glendale, California. It was also said that when he was raised to the sublime degree of a Master Mason, there were over 1,500 Masons present. And in Norway right now, they are trying to build a statue in honor of him. That's it for this week. Please remember to find us on Facebook and follow on Twitter at Whence. Be sure to check out the other show, The Masonic Roundtable, live on Tuesdays, 10/9 Central, also available on iTunes, but we are playing catch up a little bit on that, so be patient with us. Please don't forget about the Masonic Businesses Fraternal Ties for the most amazing neckwear anywhere, and PB&J Water for the best water purification systems anywhere, made right here in the United States. Don't forget about the Valley of Chicago Scottish Rite Dyslexia Foundation walk coming up at the end of the month on the 31st of May. You can visit walkfordyslexia.org for more information. Support your Grand Lodge charities, and I will talk to you all next week. Until then, stay on the level. For Whence, I'm Robert Johnson.